Hey, everybody, welcome to Gapology, guys. I'm super excited for today's episode. We have a very special guest with us today. We have Barbara Boselli is on the show today, and we're going to sort of talk about what she does and how it all connects with what we do here at Gapology and some of our books and methods and those kinds of things. So I'm excited to jump in and get this show on the road. So, Barbara, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here too, Brian.
Yeah. I think this will be fun. I was looking at your website. When you reached out, I thought, man, this actually could be a really cool conversation because I think a lot of what you do does connect with the things that we do here at
Yeah,
Gapology.
definitely.
So I think it'll be good. Do you mind if I just do a little intro, let everybody know kind of who you
Sure, go
are?
ahead, please.
Kind of a formal thing. And, I'd like to welcome Barbara Boselli to the show. Barbara is a purpose-driven professional with over 15 years experience working and leading teams in global Fortune 500 companies, including Google and L'Oreal, which I would love to know more about that. I worked in the beauty industry for a little while. Not
Okay.
that I know anything about beauty, of course, but I'd like to know more about that. But her mission is to empower individuals and corporations to relate in a healthy way to today's accelerated pace of change and high-stress environment, and to thrive as professionals and human beings. She delivers on that mission through coaching and workshops that combine emotional intelligence, which I love all that, mindfulness, and elements of neuroscience. She has teacher certification from the Google-born Search Inside Yourself program, MBA from the Kellogg School of Management, Northwestern University, degree in spiritual psychology from University of Santa Monica, mediation of conflict certificate by the Center for Dispute Resolution in Los Angeles, coaching certification from IPEC, certificate in nonviolent communication by the NVC Academy in Los Angeles, and she is certified by the International Coaching Federation and a CFA charter holder. Wow, that's a lot of amazing work that you've done in the past. And I'd like to know a little bit more about you and the work you do. And I'm sure our viewers would love to see that as well.
Sure. I was born in Brazil, born and raised there. Started my career there working for L'Oreal, actually was my first job, and then went to work for Vale, which is a large mining company in Brazil, and eventually came to the US to go back to school and get my MBA from Kellogg. And after that, went to work for Google. So I had like over 15 years working for large corporations. And as I was climbing the corporate ladder at Google, I got more and more interested in the topic of leadership and of human behavior. And so eventually, I decided to leave Google, take some time off to rethink my career and see how I could focus more on those areas that really sparked my interest. I was also a new mom at the time, so spent some time with my little kids, and eventually decided to come back as a leadership trainer and an executive coach. I opened my company called BNOW Consulting, and I've been doing there for about 6 years. So I coach individuals, I coach teams and organizations, and I bring all sorts of trainings around this topic of emotional intelligence, which for some people can sound a little bit abstract, but it's really about like um, how we show up in situations and how we relate with other people. So that's, around communication, collaboration, teamwork, emotional management, a lot of the kind of what is called soft skills, which I don't believe they're very soft, but all around that.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. I teach soft skills all the time, and I absolutely think that those are actually a lot of the harder skills
Yeah.
for people to really understand and apply and put into their work life. They can be definitely difficult. So I love all that, and the emotional intelligence piece. I love to hear how you see that connecting with what we do here. What sort of struck you about Gapology and the books that we have, and that when you first kind of heard about us and decided to reach out?
Sure. So the hook for me was your IMBAR concept,
Oh yeah.
which my understanding of it that it's all about how you can help executives and I mean anybody really to transform their own identity by changing their mindsets and their thoughts and decided who they want to be, how they want to show up in the world. And please correct me if I'm not making doing justice to the the concept. And that is something that is really uh, foundational in the work that I do with my one-on-one clients and with my the teams that I teach because I feel like sometimes we don't differentiate ourselves from our thoughts. We believe that we are our thoughts, and that's not the reality. Our thoughts are constructs that we get used to having throughout our lives, right? They're habits that we create. And we have the ability to change them if they're not serving us. So, and I can talk for hours about this, but this was kind of like to answer your question. This idea of IMBAR really connected with the kind of work that I do and what I believe and what I see being extremely helpful to my clients.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think that that's so interesting. And I do believe most people sort of feel like they're born a certain way and they always are going to be that way. They're always going to think and feel the same way. They're going to be have the same identity. And we actually can, we can decide who we want to be and put the process in place to really create that outcome. And for the viewers who haven't watched our overview on IMBAR, just to lay that out, it's an acronym. So IMBAR, identity, which is who you see yourself as, drives your mindset, which is the M. Mindset is how you think and feel. Your mindset drives behavior, the things that you do. Behavior drives action, action around you, action from your team, so forth, which drives your results, which produces your results overall. And yeah, so how do you see what you teach connecting with that?
Um, A lot of the work that I do is around mindset and understanding what are the thoughts that are leading to the outcomes you're having. Because when people come to me, especially in the coaching, and they have objectives, right, in their lives that they might be having a difficulty to achieve, more often than not, the biggest barriers are inside, not outside. Of course, the environment will impact and there are gonna be obstacles that we need to overcome. But a lot of the times is internal. It's about how people see the world. And just to give a little background to the listeners here, when we are born, we are born half baked. Of course, we have our nature that informs some of our personality traits and who we are, but there's a big component of nurture. So, through our lives, especially in the young years, we start making sense of the world because the world is this like crazy vast place and we are trying to understand what's going on. And then we start making rules and defining for ourselves what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad, what is possible, what's not possible. And our brains start creating these neural pathways that reinforce that kind of thinking and that kind of behavior. And for a long time, we thought that, that was it. We were stuck with what we have. But now we know, and of course, that I believe is the basis of IMBAR, that our brain is malleable throughout our lives. So if we start changing our behavior and doing things a different way, showing up a different way, we can rewire our brain so that new way becomes our habits. Um, I always tell the story that when I was growing up in my family, it was a very loving family, great family. And there was this unspoken rule that uh, you don't disagree with your parents, right? Because if they have an opinion, they say something, that's the truth, that's the reality, and you don't disagree. That disagreement is not okay. So from a very young age, I created a rule inside my head that disagreement equals disrespect. And I didn't even know that I had that rule in my mind. I thought that that was how the world operated. That was the truth about the world. The same way that the sun rises every day, you don't disagree with people. That's wrong. And eventually, I found out that in other houses, if you didn't speak up, if you didn't disagree, that was considered disrespectful because that meant you're not engaged in the conversation. You didn't care. And for me, that was like a big aha moment. Like, okay, so this is not the reality about the world. That's just the way I've been thinking and seeing the world. And once we start having those awarenesses, then we can have a choice, right? Do I want to keep thinking the way I've been thinking, or do I want to choose a different, more empowering thought that's going to get me closer to my objectives? So I love how this idea that we are not our thoughts are just a habitual way of us seeing the world. And there's research that shows that about 95% of our thoughts are repetitive every day. Um, so once we identify that, then we really have this power of recreating who we are, as you said, our identity by changing the kind of thoughts that we have and how we experience the world.
Yeah, I love all that. So one thing that I wrote down here that our thoughts are habitual. I never really considered that before, that it's just based on the habits of things that we've just always done. We've always thought
Yeah.
a certain way, and from that we sort of behave in a certain way. And I think often when people get in sort of that loop where it's kind of a negative loop that happens, you face an obstacle and you struggle to try to overcome it, but then you sort of face a similar obstacle and you're kind of stuck there. I think it requires new thinking, and when you're talking about something that's habitual, that's really ingrained in you, what are some things that you would recommend, to people that are kind of stuck in that?
Uh, I think the main way to get out of our habits is by getting curious and being present and mindful because we end up getting to this autopilot, right? Of thinking the same way, doing things the same way. And when we stop and we start getting curious, okay, I've been doing this way. How true is it that this is the best way? How true is it that this is the only way? If someone says something that we immediately decide that that's wrong, okay, let me investigate. Where is this person coming from? What's behind? What are they trying to tell me? It's really about, you could even say that is mindfulness, right? It's about being present with the moment and looking at each situation as if it was new. So you can explore from a fresh perspective. And it takes practice to do that. Um, Having someone like a coach is very helpful because a coach will be challenging you in your thoughts, in your assumptions. But it's all about getting curious in the way I see it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So in Gapology, we have a set of winning leader traits that we've identified.
Mhm.
And the first one that we present is eternal curiosity.
Love that.
And I mean that really creates that winning leadership, those leaders who like win not just one time, but continually win. They sort of have that as one of their key things that they do. They're always asking why. Why are things a certain way? What could we do different? They're always asking those kinds of questions.
Yeah.
And really, Gapology started as a curiosity. So Mark Tinas
Oh,
initially, he had a team of about 1,000 people that worked for him, 1,000 leaders and teams and so forth. And he was just asking the question, so why are the top performers, what we call winning leaders, why are they always at the top? And why are these other people at the bottom, right? And then that's sort of the middle part. But he was really curious about the top and the bottom. And so he started interviews and, started capturing information and data on those behaviors. And that really created Gapology. And from there, we learned and we were teaching it. And then we learned about IMBAR and we started teaching that and learning about that. And then we wrote Speed of Purpose. And it was just kind of a flow, but it all started with his curiosity there.
yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I totally agree. And um, when I teach leadership training, sometimes there is a mix of people from different levels in the audience. And inevitably, I noticed that the top executives, the CEOs, they are the people like in the front row taking notes and asking questions. And it's not because they know less than the other people. Maybe it's quite the opposite, but they are open to learning. They are open to questioning their own way of perceiving the world, their own way of thinking, and replacing that with something that might be more useful. So I I I totally agree with what you said, that this curiosity, this willingness to learn and to grow is really helpful in this sense of mindset.
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. And it's interesting what you said about the leaders in the front row, the ones who are raising their hand. And oftentimes, I sort of look at the participants as you have your extroverts and you have your introverts, and the extroverts are always the ones asking the questions. But I think there's truth to that, as well as the fact that these are people who are winning leaders for a reason. They're the ones most curious. They're the ones that will
Yeah,
challenge your presentation. They'll ask additional, how do you take this and put this into actual practice? And
yeah,
they'll sort of, but because I think they're processing the information for themselves, but they're doing it in a way because they're really just curious about how they can actually use it and make an impact.
I agree.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. What are some of the other things that you teach and present in your workshops and coaching?
Um, So I have workshops that vary from like a 60 or 90-minute workshop focused on a specific topic like Introduction to Emotional Intelligence, which is a lot about um, self-awareness, which is really the foundation of all of this work. Because if we don't understand and we don't know ourselves, it's really hard to really relate and understand other people. So it's about self-awareness, it's about emotional management, which is also so important. I have workshops on communication, on trust, on burnout, a lot of different topics. And most recently, I started a couple years ago, I started this longer term training, which is called the Leadership Experience. And this is a 12 to 18-month training where we bring either leaders or teams or even the entire organization through a journey, starting from the self awareness and self management, but all the way through mindset and again, communication and trust and um, how to speak in a different way with your team, like all the different skills that are really helpful for people to become better leaders. And when I say leaders, doesn't necessarily mean that they manage other people, because we are all leaders in our lives. We are all in relationship. We're trying to influence people, be it our kids, our partner, our friends, doesn't matter. So it helps leaders, and it also helps the organization create a common language and a culture, right? Where people are showing up in a certain way. So it's been really fun to do these longer term programs, because then you can see the impact, like, the momentum that you create.
But yeah,
That's
so that's interesting. How did you come upon, that idea?
Well, the main driver for that was wanting for the concepts and the skills to really stuck with people and create change. Um, I think that the shorter workshops are really powerful in the moment, and people usually have like one or two key takeaways that they bring to their lives. And as we know, it's so easy to go to a workshop, get inspired, love it, and then go back to our lives, right, the next day. So my goal with these longer term trainings is to create a change that really sticks by having people come back over and over again. And then we have a whole integration strategy on how to keep people, connected with the content between the sessions. So that was the idea behind that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. I think you and I need to collaborate a little bit on that. I want to learn more about how you did that.
Sure, yes.
I think that's a
Uh-huh.
cool idea. That something that certainly we could do here as well. And this is part of the reason why I love, doing these kind of interviews, but also the workshops that we have, and you meeting different people, and they all have different ideas, different perspectives, a different paradigm that they see the world in. And it's just, I always gather new ideas and information, and that's sort of what helped us create what we've done here. So, as far as your advice, so if you were to give, I don't know, maybe two or three things for our viewers to really take away, what would be some of those big nuggets?
Well, based on our conversation today, I think one key advice would be stay curious, right? Um, Stay curious because you can learn new things. Sometimes we get really stuck with our thoughts. Our ego gets in the way of us opening our minds and learning something new. And there's always something to be learned. And we are the ones that benefit from that. So I would say like the key one would be to stay curious. Um, Other advice, I think, I talked a little bit about self-awareness, and I feel that's so important for everybody because if we don't understand ourselves, if we don't know how we operate, it's very hard to really connect with others and to have a relationship that's productive and that's meaningful and compassionate. So I would give the advice of people to really take some time to look inside. We don't do that much. And so some reflection time. I think that's so important for all of us to add some reflection time, being through journaling or, having deeper conversations with people about like what they're experiencing, maybe therapy or coaching or whatever is your thing, or going for a walk and just taking that time to reflect. It's so important. And in the world that we live today that is fast and demanding, sometimes we can lose that connection with ourselves, and that's the basis for everything. So I'll leave you with that.
Okay. Yeah, no, I love all that. Stay curious, of course, that self-awareness, but that reflection time, I think that's a lost art. In this day and age of, fast-paced internet, you know, AI and all these things now is just creating such a fast world. And I think our brains are sort of getting rewired. And I think we need a little bit of unwiring there and just be able to disconnect. In fact, when we teach, we have a concept that we call leadership rhythm. It's just your process of looking at your week and deciding intentionally what you're going to do when. And of those things that you're deciding, what are the things that are going to create the most impact? So, because our days get consumed with other people's priorities or competing priorities, and we kind of lose the focus on what's most important. So
Mhm.
it's that reflection time, journaling, that whole process. I think that's a critical thing that leaders need to do. Take a look at your calendar, block time to just think. I think, I
I
think
couldn't
we need to
agree
do that.
more. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I think it creates brand new insight. Um, and then, from that creates different actions.
Yeah, and as a leader, that's your job to be thinking forward and strategically and not just reacting to whatever is put in your calendar, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right. So any last words, that you'd like to share, about your work offerings, how people can get a hold of you, that type of thing?
Yeah, sure. So you can learn more about me and my work in my website, BNOWConsulting.com. And yeah, and also if you want to email me, it's Barbara@BNOWConsulting.com. I love to hear from listeners, I love to connect with people that are interested in this kind of topics. Yeah, and it's been a pleasure talking to you and getting to know you, Brian.
Yeah, yeah. Same here. I had a great time with you today, and definitely want to keep our connection going for sure. And I'll
Sure.
go ahead and put the links up on the screen so everybody can see that. to connect with you. But thank you for your time today.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you bet. All right. Have a great day.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye.